The Chinese continue to create and invent self-deprecating aphorisms that bring joy to a life that is as painful as bitter liquor. For example, born from the indulgence of others, dying from the randomness of the life. This quote is like another Chinese maxim. Your life is a character in a tragedy. All people's births are not self-chosen. Either it was a pleasure for him and her, or a humiliation for her. The better ones are those whose parents were well prepared and planned your arrival. The worse ones, your birth was all random. No one asked you if you wanted to come into the human world, which means that you came into the world with absolutely no decision of your own. And then were taught that you had to find your purpose in life. Even worse, all your plans for yourself can be crushed by fate. You can neither decide your birth, nor your life, nor know when you will suddenly die. Please follow me and subscribe to my channel. I look forward to working with you to unravel the mysteries of destiny and our no-wills ideas and myths. The original sky god, Uranus, had the sole interest of infusing Gaia, the god of the earth, with his positive energy. As a result, Gaia became pregnant with the first generation, the 12 Titans. Presumably, Uranus' positive energy tube had held up for so long that Gaia couldn't get her children to be born, and also really tired of Uranus' endless punting inside her. She encouraged her children to castrate their father. The Titans feared their father, and only the youngest Titan, Cronus, dared to fight. Gaia made a sickle from a gray flint, or adamantine, within herself and gave it to Cronus. When Uranus's energy tube erupted once again, pumping full positive energy into the earth that was filled with negative energy, Cronus, who had embushed his mother's vagina beforehand, cut off Uranus's genitals and threw them into the sea. The phallus of Uranus gave birth to Aphrodite, the goddess of sex. The blood from the wound of Uranus gave birth to the three vengeful goddesses Erinyes, the Gigantes, and the Melee. Hesiod in Work and Times wrote,
Zeus the father made a third generation of mortal men, a brazen race sprung from ash trees, Melee.
Uranus ran back into the sky, never to return to earth, and the sky were separated from the earth. And in Japanese mythology, because the moon god Tsukiyomi no Mikoto killed Yukamochi, the goddess who protects food, it led to the wrath of Amaterasu Omikami, who refused to meet with the moon god again. So the sun and the moon never met again. The tragedy of the gods is then eternally displayed in the sky. Cronus became the new king of the gods, and in order to consolidate his hegemony, he imprisoned his siblings in hell who could challenge him. Cronus married his elder sister, Rhea, the mother goddess, and gave birth to the gods of Olympus. Since he had taken the throne of the gods from his father, he was of course afraid of his children plotting against him. Gaia in particular, seeing that Cronos was as brutal as his father, cursed Cronos to be overthrown by his offspring. Thus, Cronos devoured the children born to Rhea. By the time Zeus was to be born, Rhea had already lost 3 daughters and 2 sons. She could no longer bear to lose this youngest child. Rhea approached her mother, Gaia, and her father, Uranus, for help. And following her parents' instructions, Rhea went to Lyctus on the island of Crete, where she gave birth to Zeus and handed Zeus over to Gaia. Rhea then handed a stone wrapped in swaddling clothes to Cronus, who promptly swallowed it. Gaia takes Zeus to a cave on Mount Aegean. Zeus was fed by 2 nymphs, Adristia and Ida, with milk from the goat Amalthea. There, too, Zeus was protected by the Curetes, to prevent the cries of Zeus from reaching the heavens and being heard by Cronus. The Curetes shouted and danced outside the caves, and struck their shields with their spears to cover the baby's cries. The name Adristia, which means inescapable in ancient Greek, is an accurate description of fate. Her father, Melesius, was the eldest of the 9 Curetes and their leader. His name means bee-man or honeyman in ancient Greek. Long before wine was made, the Greeks mastered the fermentation of honey. In Greek mythology, the gods used or drank a type of ambrosia, which means immortality in Greek, probably made of fermented honey. Daniel Staples, an American classical mythologist and religionist, argued that ambrosia was made by fermenting Amanita muscaria and nectar. Amanita muscaria, commonly known as a fly agaric or fly amanita, which can cause hallucinations. As discussed earlier in this book, the fruit of good and evil that Adam and Eve ate in the Garden of Eden was the Amanita muscaria. In ancient Greek, the she-goat Amalthea means tender goddess. Ida means wooded mountain. Thus, there may have been confusion over the course of the oral tradition of this story. Zeus was supposedly raised on Mount Ida, the highest mountain on Crete, which at an elevation of 2,456 meters or 8,058 feet. It is the highest mountain range in Greece. This is similar to the Japanese myth in which Amaterasu Omikami sends Takemikazuchi and Aim no Torifune to go and conquer Japan, the latter of which is more likely to have been the name of the boat that Takemikazuchi traveled, as its Japanese name is deity Heavenly Bird Boat. The Italian medieval poets Dante Alighieri and Francesco Petrarca, along with Giovanni Boccaccio, are known as the three crowns of the Renaissance. Dante depicted this myth in his masterpiece, The Divine Comedy.
In midst of ocean, forthwith he began. A desolate country lies, which Crete is named, under whose monarch in old times the world lived pure and chaste. A mountain rises there, called Ida, joyous once with leaves and streams, deserted now like a forbidden thing. It was the spot which Rhea, Saturn's spouse, chose for the secret cradle of her son. And better to conceal him, drowned in shouts his infant cries. Within the mount, upright and ancient form there stands and huge, that turns his shoulders towards Damietta and at Rome, as in his mirror looks. Of finest gold his head is shapt, pure silver are the breast and arms, thence to the middle is of brass, and downward all beneath well-tempered steel, save the right foot of potter's clay, on which, then on the other more erect he stands, each part except the gold is rent throughout, and from the fissure tears distill, which join penetrate to that cave. They in their course thus far precipitated down the rock form Acheron, and Styx, and Phlegethon. Then by this straitened channel passing hence beneath, e'en to the lowest depth of all, form there Cocytus, of whose lake thyself shall see it, I here give thee no account.
In Dante's depiction, the old man with a golden head and feet of clay actually represents mankind, because when a man is a teenager, he always has great ideals, but after decades of hard life, he finally realizes that his feet of clay cannot support his beautiful dreams like gold. At the time of exhaustion and old age, he looks back on his own life, but it is just a small role in the human tragedy that flashes by in a hurry. When Zeus grew up, he married Metis, the goddess of wisdom, whose Greek name means wisdom, skill, or craft. Metis was one of 3,000 Oceanids, born to the second Titan, Oceanus, god of the ocean rivers, and his wife, Thetis, who was also the second Titan. Metis brewed a special pot of poison and gave it to Zeus, who offered it to Cronus to drink, who spat out the swallowed children. And so Zeus's brother and sisters, the Olympians, were reborn, and they were
A Poseidon, presiding over the sea, storms, earthquakes, and horses. A Hades is the god of the dead and the king of the underworld. A Hera is the goddess of marriage, women, and family, and the protector of women enduring childbirth. A Demeter, presiding over crops, grains, food, and the fertility of the earth. A Hestia, meaning hearth or fireside, is the virgin goddess of the hearth and the home.
Being regenerate, they served Zeus as their chief, and under Zeus began a crusade against their father, Cronus, who ran to his own sister and brother, the Titans, and rallied them to resist the Olympian gods, waging the Battle of Titans, known as the Titanomachy. The two sides engaged in a fierce battle that lasted 10 years and nearly destroyed the universe. Eventually, the Olympian gods defeated the Titans. The defeated Titans were banished to Tartarus, the hell. Zeus became the supreme god king of the gods. To avoid his own brothers killing each other, he and his brothers, Poseidon and Hades, distributed power by drawing lots. Zeus was given the power of the sky and became the king of heaven. Poseidon was given the power of the sea and became the king of the sea. And Hades was given the power of the underworld and became the king of the underworld. After this, Zeus suffered from fear of offspring. It was prophesied that the children born to Metis would have the power to overthrow Zeus. Zeus outdid his father, Cronus, by coaxing Metis to turn into a fly and promptly swallowing his pregnant wife. Athena, the daughter of Zeus and Metis, was born in and sprang from Zeus' head. Prometheus created mankind as his brother for the purpose of creating a world parallel to the gods. Athena was born from the split head of Zeus, symbolizing a defiance and challenge to patriarchal power and kingship. This is why she helped Prometheus to create man, by injecting the soul into the human body. Zeus punished Prometheus, but let his daughter Athena go. Indeed, the father's love is like the ocean. An awesome father is better than your own lifelong struggle. The behavior of Cronus and Zeus in eating their own children likely reflects the ancient custom of humans eating their firstborn. The Chinese thinker Mozi lived during the same period as the ancient Greek philosopher Socrates. His ideas were recorded in the book Mozi.
Mozi said, "This is because habit affords convenience and custom carries approval." Anciently, east of the state of Yue, there was the tribe of Kaishu. Among them, the firstborn son was dismembered and devoured after birth, and this was said to be propitious for his younger brothers.
The Mozi, as well as many ancient Chinese texts, record the custom of some tribes around southern China that would cut their firstborn. But for the daughters, there was no need to kill them. The fact that Zeus didn't punish Athena should have something to do with Athena's female identity. As discussed in earlier chapters of this book, in central China, tribes from the Sumerian civilization were eventually routed by the Yellow Emperor tribes from Siberia and migrated to southern China. It is likely that this custom existed in the Sumerian civilization and spread to the Greek peninsula. Some scholars believe that killing the firstborn was likely a way to ensure that one's offspring were of the male husband's lineage. Considering the openness to sexual matters in ancient Greece, where there was a great deal of premarital sexual activity between men and women, it is likely that this was also a folk custom in ancient Greece, the purpose of which was to ensure the purity of the heir's lineage. Since women do not usually inherit the family business, there is no need to kill them. With the progress of civilization, the custom of cooking the firstborn son gradually disappeared. However, in order to ensure the purity of the lineage, the nomadic tribes on the northern steppe usually adopted the youngest son inheritance system, probably for the same reason. In ancient Greek mythology, the youngest son, Cronus, inherited the divine right of Uranus, and the youngest son, Zeus, inherited the divine right of Cronus, which may also be a reflection of this tradition in mythology. Athena, the beautiful goddess with wisdom, warfare, and handicraft, who was later syncretized with the Roman goddess Minerva. She was known as Peleus and Poliuchos, both derived from polis, meaning city-state. She is the patron goddess of Athens, from whom she is also supposed to have taken her name. The Mycenaean civilization, also known as Mycenaean Greece, arose in and around the Hellenic Peninsula from about 1750 to 1050 BC. Was the last phase of the Bronze Age. The Mycenaean civilization was influenced by the Minoan civilization of Crete. It is known for its monumental architecture and its energetic art. It is often regarded as the first civilization in Europe. Around 3100 BC, the Minoan civilization entered the Neolithic or New Stone Age, and complex urban settlements began to appear around 2000 BC. After about 1450 BC, they were subjected to cultural and perhaps political domination by the Mycenaean civilization on the mainland, resulting in a hybrid culture that lasted until about 1100 BC. The Minoan and Mycenaean civilizations are known as the cradle of European civilization. and the jewel set in this cradle is Athens. Athenians have a rare love for the discernment of ideas and the articulation of language that few cities have matched since ancient times, even in contemporary times. Eugene Ban and Margaret Tell, Ban, in A History of Oral Interpretation, argue that to Greeks the spoken word was a living thing and infinitely preferable to the dead symbols of a written language. Socrates, known as the founder of Western philosophy and also a citizen of Athens, believed that once things are written down, they lose their ability to change and evolve. This is very much in line with the Chinese Zen saying,
A special transmission outside the scriptures, not established upon words and letters, directly pointing to the human heart-mind, seeing nature and becoming a Buddha.
Because of this, Athenian spoken literature, ballads, poetry, and theater were popular among Athenian citizens. Around 700 BC, ancient Greek theater began to emerge. Theater was gradually institutionalized as part of the Dionysia, the festival in honor of Dionysus, the god of wine. Dionysus is the god of winemaking, orchards and fruit, vegetation, fertility, festivity, insanity, ritual madness, religious ecstasy, and theater. He was also known as Bacchus by the Greeks, a name later adopted by the Romans for a frenzy he is said to induce called bacchia. In ancient Greece, hard-working people got rid of their self-conscious fears and worries and forgot about the oppressive bondage of the powerful through wine, music, and wild dancing. Rhea was the daughter of Uranus and Gaia, and she and her brother Cronus gave birth to the Olympian gods, including Zeus. The Greek male gods were erotically charged, always trying to inject their positive energy into any goddess or woman. In this regard, if Zeus was second, no one would dare to call oneself first. He didn't even spare his own mother. He courted her, and Rhea had to turn into a snake to escape. But Zeus also turned himself into a snake and raped her. As a result, Rhea gave birth to their daughter Persephone. At birth, Persephone was a deformed child, and a frightened Rhea abandoned her daughter and ran away. Later transformed into Demeter, she became the goddess of the harvest and agriculture, presiding over crops, grains, food, and the fertility of the earth. Persephone later lived in her mother's house, guarded by the Curetes. Growing up, Persephone was so gorgeous and turned the gods of Olympus on. Hermes, Apollo, Ares, and Hephaestus each presented Persephone with a gift to woo her, fearing that Persephone would end up marrying the lame and ugly Hephaestus. Demeter consulted Astraeus, which name means starry, is an astrological deity. Astraeus looks up at the stars and peers down at Olympus again, then warns Demeter that Persephone will be raped and impregnated by a serpent. Demeter then hid Persephone in a cave, expecting to escape the cruelty of fate. But Zeus, once again disguised as a serpent, slipped into the cave and raped Persephone. Persephone became pregnant and gave birth to Zagreus. Zeus loved the sun so much that he took him to Mount Ida and gave him to the Curetes to guard. Zeus expected a grown Zagreus to succeed him as ruler of the universe. But his wife, the jealous Queen Hera, incited the Titans to kill the boy. The Titans lured the infant Zagreus with mirrors and other toys, then seized him and tore him to pieces. The Titans boiled the torn Zagreus in a cauldron and ate parts of it. Since no one liked Zagreus' phallus, it was thrown into the river. Athena managed to save Zagreus' heart and gave it to Zeus. One version of the story is that Demeter reassembled the pieces, thus rebirthing Zagreus without a phallus. Another version of the story is that Zeus ground up his heart, put it in a potion, and gave it to Semele to drink and reconceive. Semele is the youngest daughter of Cadmus, the founder of Thebes, and of Harmonia. She was also a priestess of Zeus and became the young mistress of the lustful Zeus. Hera, the wife of Zeus, poses as old crone to seduce Semele about her lover, and when she hears her speak of Zeus as her lover, Hera pretends not to believe it and plants the seeds of doubt in Semele's mind. Curious, Semele asks Zeus to grant her favors. Eager to please his beloved, Zeus promised to fulfill all her requests on the river Styx. She then asked Zeus to show his glory to prove his divinity. Zeus pleaded with her not to do so, but she insisted, and Zeus was forced by his oath to comply. Zeus showed her his smallest lightning bolts and the sparsest thunderstorm clouds he could find. However, mortals are incinerated at the sight of the gods, and she was thus consumed by the flames ignited by the lightning. However, Zeus saved the fetus and sewed it to his thigh. As a result, Zeus walked with a limp. A few months later, the reborn child was born with a new name, Dionysus, which means Zeus limp. Dionysus was also known as the twice born. Aeschylus wrote the tragedy simile for this purpose, but it is sadly lost. The earliest known wines came from present-day Georgia, 6000 BC, Persia, 5000 BC, Armenia, 4100 BC, and Sicily c. 4000 BC. The grapes had to be crushed and then fermented in fermenting vats, or tanks, which is probably the image of Zagreus being torn into pieces and placed in a cauldron. The grape juice was sealed and fermented for a certain period of time, which is probably the secret Zeus sealed inside the thighs. In this way the grapes, Zagreus, were reborn again and became wine, Dionysus. Among the first of the dramatic genres to be born were the tragedy, which appeared around 500 BC, followed by the comedy and satyr dramas, which appeared in 490 BC. The styles and terminology of these plays have continued to influence European theater today. Thespis, the first famous actor recorded as performing tragedy, is also known as the father of tragedy. Another more famous father of tragedy is the tragedy writer Aeschylus. The oracle Aeschylus was killed by falling objects, so he stayed outdoors to avoid falling buildings. Instead, an eagle used Aeschylus' head as a stone that can smash a prey and dropped a tortoise, killing him. The works of Aeschylus were so respected by the Athenians that after his death, his tragedy was the only one allowed to be reenacted in subsequent competitions. Aeschylus wrote some 70 to 90 plays in his lifetime, 7 of which have survived. These include Prometheus Bound, which was written between about 479 and 424 BC. Of course, some scholars attribute this play to his son, the tragedian Euphorion. The Prometheus series is supposed to be a trilogy, and the 2 lost books are Prometheus Unbound and Prometheus the Firebringer. Prometheus Bound shows Prometheus being punished by Zeus for stealing fire and being chained to a rock in the mountains of Scythia. Scythia was the name given by the ancient Greeks to the nomadic zone of their northern steppes. And in the play, Prometheus foretells in advance that he will be punished and also foretells his fate. When Io, daughter of King Inachus of Argos, another woman possibly wooed by Zeus, seeks advice from Prometheus about her future, he informs Io of her end and that one of her descendants who will become a liberator of himself. In Greek mythology, Io was a priestess of the Argos goddess Hera, who refused the advances of Zeus and was turned into a heifer by him. Hera begged Zeus to give her the heifer as a gift, and Zeus could not refuse, so he gave her to Hera. Gaia, the earth goddess, took pity on the unfortunate Io and created violetous fodder for cows. The various colors of the violet changed on account of Io's life: red for the blushing maiden, purple for the cow, white for the stars. Hera sent the many-eyed giant Argus to spy on Io and prevent Zeus from visiting her. Argus was a servant of Hera with 100 eyes, always watching in all directions. And even when asleep he had some eyes open to observe. There could not be a more perfect guardian than Argus. Hera charged him to tether this cow safely to an olive tree at Nemea. Zeus sends his right-hand man Hermes to clear the way for his cheating. Hermes is also the protector of human heralds, travelers, thieves, merchants, and orators. He approaches Argus disguised as a shepherd, first lulling him to sleep by playing panpipes and telling stories, then using his wand to close Argus' still open eyes. Finally, he beheaded Argus, earning him the nickname Argus Slayer. Hera, who dared not retaliate against Zeus for his infidelity, but only took it out on mortals, sent a gadfly to keep biting Io, driving her to wander around without rest. Io eventually crossed the path between Propontis and the Black Sea, hence the name Bosporus, or Bosphorus Strait. meaning cow passage or cattle passage. She then encountered Titan Prometheus, who was chained to Mount Caucasus by Zeus. Io recognizes Prometheus, the god who made man. She asks Prometheus to give her guidance. Prometheus, the forethought, knows of Io's future wanderings, but he hesitates because he knows that knowing one's own destiny only adds to the suffering of those who have no choice. Prometheus asks Io to make a choice. Does she want to hear about her future? Or does she want to hear the name of the man who will save Prometheus among her descendants? Io asks for two answers, one about Io's own fate and one about Prometheus' fate. Eventually, a hesitant Prometheus reveals the answer to his and her fate. Io's wanderings would end at the mouth of the Nile. There, Zeus would restore her to human form. She would give birth to a son, Epiphus. Epiphus will give birth to 50 daughters, all but one of whom will kill their husbands. The offspring of the daughter who did not kill her husband will put Prometheus out of his misery. Thus Io would become the ancestor of Heracles, the greatest hero on earth, who saved Prometheus. Prometheus, the heroic god who made man, declared at the same time that no matter how great Zeus was, his reign would eventually come to an end. Zeus had better prepare himself for the worst, because he can't hold the scepter in his hands forever, and no god has ever been able to control the world forever. Prometheus' prophecy reached Zeus, who sent a messenger, Hermes, to urge Prometheus to reveal the secret that would threaten Zeus. Prometheus refused. So Zeus sent eagles that flew every day during the day to tear out his liver and revive it at night. Tragedy is the narrative of human suffering. The greatest human suffering is the contradiction between the irresistibility of fate and the individual's desire to control his or her own life. The recurring theme in both Greek mythology and drama is the struggle against destiny, which is doomed to failure. Please follow me and subscribe to my channel. Please also share the stories I tell. I look forward to working with more people to completely unlock the mysteries of life's destiny in the Ideas and Myths by Arno Will.